We're here today to talk about kegerators, how to take them apart and how to choose the right coupler for the beers you're going to select. Right now we're looking at a Marvell 61HKBB-O-R. That's going to be their overlay model. You'll notice that the cabinet door matches the adjacent cabinets, which is what we call the overlay design. They also offer the 61HKBSFR. That's going to be a black cabinet with a stainless steel door front. And they also offer a 61HKBB-F. That's just simply a black cabinet with a black door. Anytime you see a 60HK, that's going to be their outdoor rated model, rated to be outdoors in the elements. And if the model number ends with a -L, it's simply set up for a left-hand door swing. You're also going to find model numbers that end in a -X, and those are going to be units that come without the tower, so you can purchase a tower on your own. Now the reason that becomes important is there's so many towers on the market. They come in both a 2.5-inch width and also a 3-inch width. In order to bolt to the top of a Marvell kegerator, you're going to want to go with a 3-inch width tower. That's also going to give you more room when you're working on your connections. Take the cap off, you can get your tools here in the top of the tower with a little bit more ease, and it's a little less cramped to work on. In addition to that, we're going to take a look at faucets. This faucet here is what comes pretty much standard with most towers on the market. The one drawback with this faucet is in order to clean it, you have to take it completely off the tower each time, and all the components need to come apart for a thorough cleaning. And if you don't clean this regularly, you're going to find that the handle will stick in between beer pours. So we recommend the Perlick 525. This is an all stainless steel faucet. It's hermetically sealed. The handle's never going to stick on you in between pours, and it's a lot easier to clean since you can actually clean this without actually having to take the tap head off the tower each time. Now when you're in the market looking for one of these dual tap towers, you're going to find that they typically come with Sankey couplers, and what that means is they're going to hook up to American beers and American made kegs. There's a lot of other couplers on the market, everything from reverse Sankey to Hoff Stevens, and these couplers are going to hook up overseas beers like Heineken. For a complete chart of compatibility, check out micromatic.com. In addition to that, if you're a home brewer, you might recognize these as Cornelius fittings, and these are going to hook up to most of your home brew type barrels. Another thing I want to bring quick mention to you is the size of the shank, which is also the size of the bore that the liquid is coming out of in your dual tower. Now the way we're going to figure that out is we have our Kegerator specialty tool here. We're going to turn this ring clockwise, and as we remove this ring clockwise, it's going to allow our tap handle to come right off, and what it reveals here is a small hole back here. Now some of the cheaper dual towers come with a 3/16 bore. I recommend you go with a 1/4 inch bore. I've found that the smaller 3/16 bore can be a little more difficult to dial in the pressure with your highly carbonated beers, because when you're driving that beer through a smaller hole, it's going to create a little more turbulence, and it's going to cause a foaming problem if it's not dialed in just right. Another thing I need to bring mention to is the size of the kegs we're running today. Right now I'm running 2 5-gallon barrels, and basically 2 5-gallon barrels are going to fit into this Marvell beautifully, along with 2 separate gas tanks. Now the only time I'd need to run 2 separate gas tanks is if I'm running carbon dioxide on one side and what we call guinea gas on the other. Guinea gas is something that I'd only use for stouts, and it's going to be a different tank and a blend of 75% nitrogen, 25% carbon dioxide. And you'll also notice that when stouts are being poured in bars, it's a special fitting up on the tap, and that's because it's a much higher pressure system, and you'll need to purchase a separate tank and different regulators to run nitrogen or guinea gas. So as you can see, we can put 2 5s in this kegerator beautifully. Other sizes on the market, you'll also find a 7-gallon size. Looks very similar to these 5s, except it's a little bit wider. We're only going to be able to fit one of a 7-gallon size in here. In addition to that, you'll be able to fit all sizes of 12-gallon, 13-gallon, all the way up to 15-gallon will actually fit here in this machine. Any sizes above that is going to be a full keg. You'll typically find those only in a restaurant commercial scenario. So your machine will be able to hold almost any size, but if you want to run 2 separate cylinders, you'll need to make sure that they're 5-gallon in size. A lot of Kegerator specialty stores are now transferring the contents of beer so that you'll have a larger selection in the 5-gallon size, just to ensure you'll be able to purchase your favorite beer and still run this in a dual 5 configuration. Now I want to talk just a minute about setting up the pressure on your carbon dioxide tank to give you the perfect beer pour. Now, this is actually a science, and you're going to want to understand how to do this in order to set your kegerator up correctly. When you buy your dual tap or single tap tower, the beer lines are going to come cut at a specific length. We want you to keep those lengths the sizes that they leave, whether it's 4 feet to 7 feet, depending on the type of line that the manufacturer uses. This is really important for back pressure. You can't cut those lines shorter. In addition to that, we're going to recommend that you buy clear line, because then you're going to be able to see when bubbles of carbon dioxide start to build up, which causes too much head when you're pouring your beer. Essentially, when you buy a beer, it comes from the manufacturer with a certain amount of carbonation. And what we want is the pressure of the tank and the pressure of the beer carbonation to push on each other equally in order to get that perfect pour out of your kegerator. If you pour your first beer, we want you to study the beer inside the beer line. If you start to notice little bubbles building up in the line, chances are when you pour your next beer, you're going to find that it'll be a little bit of clear liquid followed by 4 inches of pure foam. That's a sign that your pressure set a little bit too low and you need to turn the pressure up higher. On the inverse, if your pressure's too high, the beer is just going to pour out extremely fast out of the tap, and therefore you're going to get too much head. The ideal pressure is going to be somewhere in between those two ranges. In addition to that, we recommend you get a thermometer, put it in your kegerator overnight. The next morning you're going to look at the thermometer and see what temperature it's at. Using this chart is going to give you an idea of the pressure you're going to want to start at before you start this process of trying to dial in the perfect pressure for the perfect beer pour. We also need to bring mention to the fact that when you pour your very first beer, you're going to find that there's going to be excessive foam. And the reason for that is the beer is sitting in a temperature zone of about 35 degrees and it's moving into a tower that's probably sitting at room temperature. Therefore, the beer going from a cold temperature zone to a warmer temperature zone is going to cause excessive head just when you pour that very first beer. Every beer poured after that will have the correct head. You want to make sure you're using clean glassware without too much detergent built up on it. It's also a good idea to rinse off your glass to get it nice and cold. You want the glass to be the same temperature as the beer that's pouring into it. Pull the handle all the way back with the glass at a 45-degree angle, being careful not to dip the faucet into the beer. At the end, you'll want to put your glass vertical. Perfect pour every time. Purchase your Marvell Kegerator from kitchenfoundry.com. We carry all the Marvell models in stock and we ship on the next business day. We also carry the X model, which will allow you to purchase the tower, tanks, and aftermarket valves that'll suit your needs best.